The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal canyon. Thousands of seats filled the curved walls, each one holding a different kind of alien being. Some had scales that changed color when they talked. Others looked like walking crystals that sang instead of speaking. A few breathed different air and sat in special glass boxes. Daniel Carter sat in the human section near the middle of the hall. His gray hair was neat and his suit was simple and clean. He had been Earth's main speaker at the council for 5 years now. In all that time, he had learned to keep his face calm no matter what the aliens said about his people. Today felt different. Though the other humans sitting with him seemed more tense than usual. They all knew what was coming. The Zephyrian delegate stood up first. His name was Kethver, and he looked like a giant bug with too many arms. When he spoke, a small machine around his neck changed his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. The humans are a problem, Kethver clicked and buzzed. They build new colonies too fast. They do not ask permission from the right offices. They do not follow the rules that keep our galaxy safe and peaceful. Several other aliens made agreeing. Sounds, some clicked, some hummed, and some made noises that sounded like breaking glass. The Altarian delegate spoke next. Her name was Lithara, and she looked like a tall, crystal statue that glowed from inside. Humans learn new things too quickly. Her voice came out like music from a broken radio. They make new machines and weapons without sharing the plans with the council first. This is dangerous for everyone. More agreeing sounds filled the hall. Carter noticed that most of the aliens seemed happy to blame humans for their problems. It had been this way for months now. The Centauran delegate raised one of his forearms. Vorthak looked like a mix between a lizard and a tree, with bark-like skin and yellow eyes. Humans do not respect the old ways, he said in a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. They want to change everything. They make other species want to change too. This brings chaos. Carter had heard all of this before. Every week the same complaints. Humans were too fast, too smart, too independent. They did not follow the council's rules closely enough. They did not share their new inventions freely enough. They did not ask permission for every little thing they wanted to do. The council had been running the galaxy for over 800 years. In all that time, things had moved slowly and carefully. Every decision went through committees. Every new idea had to be approved by dozens of different groups. Every change took years or decades to happen. Then humans had joined the Galactic Community 50 years ago. At first, the aliens had been curious about the new species. Humans were not the strongest or the smartest in the galaxy, but they had something different. They could adapt quickly. They could solve problems in new ways. They could work together even when they disagreed about things. The Council had welcomed humans at first. Human traders had helped connect distant worlds. Human doctors had found cures for diseases that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Human engineers had built better ships and stations than anyone thought possible. But as humans spread across the galaxy, the Council began to worry. Other species started asking why they had to follow so many slow rules when humans got things done so much faster. Some alien worlds began trading directly with human colonies instead of going through Council trade centers. Young aliens began studying human technology and ideas. The Council saw this as a threat to their power. So they began making new rules aimed at slowing humans down. Humans had to get special permits for new colonies. They had to share all their research with Council scientists. They had to limit how fast their ships could travel between systems. Most of these rules only applied to humans, not to the other species. When human diplomats complained about this, the Council said it was for the good of galactic stability. Carter had spent years trying to work within this system. He had filed the right papers, attended the right meetings, and followed the right procedures. But nothing ever seemed to be enough for the Council. The rules kept getting stricter and the complaints kept getting louder. Now Kethver was speaking. Again, humans must be controlled, he clicked. They must accept limits on their expansion. They must stop developing new weapons and ships without Council approval. They must share all their technology freely with other species. Lithara's crystal body flashed brighter. If humans cannot follow council law, perhaps they should not be allowed to participate in galactic civilization. Carter felt something. Cold settled in his stomach. He looked around at the thousands of alien faces staring down at the human section. Most of them seemed to agree with what they were hearing. Vorthuk stood up again. I propose that we vote on new restrictions for human activity. No new colonies without a 5-year approval process. No new technology without full council review. No human ships traveling faster than approved speeds. The hall erupted in clicks, hums, and musical sounds as aliens voiced their support for the idea. Carter watched as species after species stood up to agree with the proposal. He had known this day would come. The council was not interested in working with humans as equals. They wanted to control humans, to make them just another slow, careful, rule-following member of their ancient system. Carter stood up slowly. The hall began to quiet down as aliens noticed the human ambassador rising to speak. He had been quiet during these sessions for weeks now, taking notes and saying very little. Honored delegates, Carter said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's speakers. The United Earth Federation has listened carefully to your concerns over the past months. He paused and looked around the hall. Thousands of alien eyes, crystals, sensors, and other ways of seeing focused on him. You have told us that humans expand too quickly. You have said that we develop technology too fast. You believe that we do not respect the Council's authority enough. You want us to slow down, to share everything we create, and to ask permission for every decision we make. Carter took a deep breath. We have considered your demands very carefully. After much discussion, Earth has reached a decision. The hall was completely silent now. Even the aliens who could not help making noise seemed to be holding their breath. Effective immediately, the United Earth Federation withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will close our embassies on all Council worlds. We will end all trade agreements made through Council systems. We will recall our research teams from joint projects. We will stop participating in Council activities of every kind. The silence broke like a dam bursting. Thousands of aliens began making shock sounds all at once. Click buzz hums mixed with crystal songs mixed with wind-through-leaves voices. The noise was overwhelming. Kethver's machine translator was working overtime as he clicked frantically. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures. There are rules for withdrawal that take years to complete. Carter smiled for the first time. In months. We are not breaking any laws, Kethver. We are exercising our right as a free species to choose our own path. Humans will continue to exist, to grow, and to thrive. We will simply do it without the Council's guidance. He picked up his folder and closed it with a sharp snap. The human species wishes the Council well in all its future endeavors. Carter turned and walked toward the exit. The other human delegates stood up and followed him in perfect order. Not one of them looked back at the chaos erupting behind them. As they reached the door, Carter could hear Lithara's crystal voice rising above the noise. This is madness. They will destroy themselves without our guidance. Carter pushed through the door and stepped into the corridor outside. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. Behind them, the Council continued arguing about what to do next. Most of them believed this was just a temporary anger that would pass in a few days. Humans would come back when they realized how much they needed the Council's help. They were wrong about that too. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Council Hall. At first, most aliens thought it was just a trick to get attention. They expected human ships to keep coming to their ports. They expected human traders to keep bringing goods from distant worlds. They expected everything to continue as normal. They were wrong. Captain Lisa Murphy stood on the bridge of her cargo ship, the New Horizon. She was looking out at Centauri Station through the main window. The station was huge, built like a metal flower with dozens of arms reaching out into space. Each arm had docking bays for ships carrying goods from across the galaxy. Captain, her first officer called out. His name was Pete Hamilton, and he had worked with Lisa for 8 years. "We're getting another message from the station commander. He wants to talk to you personally," Lisa sighed. She had been avoiding these calls for the past hour. "Put him through, Pete." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Vextal, the station's administrator. He was an Altarian, which meant he looked like a walking crystal statue. Right now his body was flashing between blue and red colors, which Lisa knew meant he was very worried. "Captain Murphy," Vextal's musical voice came through the speakers. "Please tell me this is not your final delivery to our station." Lisa checked her cargo manifest one more time. Medical supplies, rare metals, and food concentrates from 3 different human worlds. Everything the outer colonies needed to survive. In the harsh radiation of the Centauri system. "I'm sorry, Vextal," Lisa said. "After we finish unloading today, New Horizon will only be working routes inside human space. This is our last run to your station." Vextal's crystal body flashed. Bright red. "But Captain, you cannot simply stop coming here. The colonies on Centauri 7 depend on the medical supplies you bring. Without them, thousands of our people will get sick from radiation poisoning." Lisa felt bad for him, but she had her orders. "Then I suggest you find other suppliers. Earth Federation ships are no longer serving Council space. Other suppliers?" Vextal's voice went higher, like a broken flute. "Captain, your people have been handling this route for 15 years. No other species has ships that can make the run efficiently. The Vrex Consortium says they might be able to do it, but they want 3 times the payment and can only make deliveries once every 6 months instead of once every month." Lisa nodded. She had heard similar stories from other stations. Human cargo fleets had been built for speed and efficiency. They could carry more goods, travel faster between systems, and make deliveries more often than any other species in the galaxy. "That's not my problem anymore," Lisa said, though she tried to keep her voice kind. "The Council made it very clear that human involvement in galactic affairs was not welcome. We're just doing what you asked us to do." Vextal's form flickered. "With desperation. But we never asked you to leave completely. We just wanted you to follow the same rules as everyone else." "Those rules would have made us just as slow and inefficient as everyone else," Lisa replied. "Our whole advantage was that we could do things differently. Take that away, and there's no point in us being here at all." The conversation ended with Vextal begging her to reconsider, but Lisa had already made up her mind. The New Horizon finished unloading its cargo and left Centauri Station for the last time. Similar scenes were playing out across hundreds of worlds. Human cargo ships completed their final deliveries and headed home. Human research stations went dark and their scientists packed up their equipment. Human diplomatic offices closed their doors and sent their staff back to Earth, on the Council. World of Nexus Prime Chief Administrator Gorthek was discovering just how much the galaxy had depended on human services. Gorthek was a Zephyrian, like Kethver, but he worked with numbers and trade statistics instead of making speeches. His assistant, a young Zephyrian named Ketros, came into his office carrying a datapad with the latest trade reports. Ketros looked nervous, which was never a good sign. "Sir," Ketros said, his mandibles clicking anxiously, "the quarterly trade numbers are ready. You're not going to like them." Gorthek took the datapad and studied the numbers. His scales shifted from their normal green color to a dark brown, which meant he was very alarmed. "This can't be right," he muttered. "These numbers show that trade volume has dropped by almost 30% in just 3 months." "It's right, sir," Ketros confirmed. Human cargo fleets were handling about 30% of all shipping between systems. With them gone, we don't have enough ships to move goods efficiently. Gorthek scrolled through more data. "What about the other shipping companies? Can't they pick up the extra work?" "That's the problem, sir. The Vrex Consortium is demanding a 40% increase in shipping costs. They say the extra routes and rush orders justify the higher prices. 40%? Gorthek's scales turned almost black. That will bankrupt half the colonies in the outer systems. The Hegemony Transport Guild is offering better rates, Ketros said hopefully. only 20% higher than the humans used to charge. But they're also much slower, Gorthek pointed out. Their ships take twice as long to make deliveries, and they can only carry half as much cargo per trip. Ketros nodded sadly. Yes, sir. And they don't serve the dangerous routes that human ships used to handle. No one wants to risk their ships in the radiation zones or near the unstable systems. Gorthek put down the datapad and rubbed his temples with two of his four hands. The humans had been so efficient and reliable that everyone had taken them for granted. They charged fair prices, delivered goods on time, and went places that other species considered too risky. Now they were gone, and the galaxy was discovering how much it had depended on them, but the shipping crisis was just the beginning. On the research station orbiting Vega Prime, Dr. Zhelkaz was facing his own problems. Zhelkaz was a Centaurian scientist who had been working with human researchers for the past decade. His laboratory felt empty now. Half the equipment was gone, taken away by the human scientists when they left. The other half sat unused because no one else knew how to operate the advanced instruments that humans had built. Dr. Zhelkaz was studying a sample of quantum crystals when his communication system chimed. The holographic image of Minister Nexrin appeared in the air above his desk. Nexrin was the head of the Altarian Science Council and one of the most important researchers in the galaxy. Dr. Zhelkaz, Nexrin's crystal form pulsed with urgency. I need to speak with you about the quantum resonance project. Zhelkaz set down his instruments. What about it, Minister? The project was suspended when the human researchers left. That's the problem, Nexrin said. We're getting reports of quantum anomalies in the outer rim. The readings matched the signature of the scourge. Zhelkaz felt his bark-like skin go cold. The scourge was a quantum plague that had destroyed several star systems decades ago. The Council had thought it was completely eliminated. Are you certain? He asked. The patterns are unmistakable, Nexrin confirmed. And the quantum resonance technology that Dr. Foster's team was developing is the only known way to stop the scourge from spreading. Zhelkaz looked around his empty laboratory. But the human team took all their research data with them when they left. And the equipment they built is too advanced for us to reproduce quickly. How long would it take to rebuild the project from scratch? Nexrin asked. Without human assistance? Zhelkaz calculated in his head. At least 5 years, maybe 10? And that's assuming we can figure out how their quantum resonance generators actually work. Nexrin's form flickered with what Zhelkaz recognized as fear. The scourge spreads exponentially. If we can't stop it within the next year, it could consume a dozen star systems. Then we need the humans to help us, Zhelkaz said simply. But the Council voted to prohibit all official contact with Earth, Nexrin pointed out. We cannot simply ask for their assistance. Zhelkaz was quiet for a moment. Then maybe the Council needs to reconsider that decision. The conversation ended with both scientists worried about the future. The Quantum Resonance Project had been one of the most promising research efforts in the galaxy, combining human innovation with alien knowledge. The Council had shut it down because they thought human involvement was too dangerous. Now they were discovering that human absence was far more dangerous than human presence had ever been. Similar realizations were happening across the galaxy. Communication networks that depended on human-maintained relay stations began failing. Defense systems that relied on human tactical analysis became less effective. Trade routes that human ships had pioneered became too dangerous for other species to use. The galaxy had spent centuries building a careful, slow, stable system. The humans had come along and made everything faster, more efficient, and more interconnected. The Council had seen this as a threat to their control. Now, they were learning that you cannot simply remove a major part of a complex system and expect everything else to keep working the same way. The humans were gone, and the galaxy was starting to fall apart without them. 6 months had passed since humans disappeared from galactic society. The problems were getting worse every day. What had started as shipping delays and research setbacks was now becoming a full crisis that threatened the stability of the entire galaxy. Dr. Ellen Foster sat in her office on the human colony of New Geneva. She was looking out the window at the busy streets below, where humans went about their daily lives without worrying about galactic politics. Her research institute was thriving, working on projects that the Council had once tried to control. Or shut down. A soft chime from her desk made her turn around. A holographic projector was activating, which was unusual. The Earth Federation had cut off most communication channels with Council space months ago. The image that appeared made Ellen raise her eyebrows in surprise. It was Zethmar, the Altarian science minister. His crystal body was flickering between colors rapidly, which Ellen knew meant he was very nervous. "Dr. Foster," Zethmar said, his musical voice carrying an edge of desperation, "I hope this message reaches you safely." Ellen leaned back in her chair. "Minister Zethmar, this is quite unexpected. I thought the Council had banned all direct contact with human institutions." Zethmar's crystal form pulsed with embarrassment. "The situation has become ... critical. We must discuss the quantum resonance research your team was conducting before." "The withdrawal? You mean the research the Council called too dangerous for unrestricted development?" Ellen could not keep the irony out of her voice. "The same research you demanded we stop immediately." "The scourge has returned," Zethmar said simply. Ellen's casual attitude disappeared instantly. She sat up straight in her chair. "Where?" "3 systems in the outer rim have gone dark," Zethmar explained. "The quantum signatures match the scourge. Patterns exactly. Our scientists estimate it will reach populated systems within 18 months. Ellen was quiet for a moment, thinking about the implications. The scourge was not just a disease that killed people. It was a quantum phenomenon that destroyed the basic structure of matter itself. Entire planets had been reduced to clouds of subatomic particles when the scourge had appeared decades ago. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Without intervention, we calculate that 12 star systems will be completely sterilized within 2 years, Zethmar replied. "That means the death of over 40 billion beings." Ellen walked to her window again, looking down at the peaceful colony below. Children were playing in the parks. Adults were working in the markets and offices. None of them knew that a quantum plague might be spreading across the galaxy. The quantum resonance technology is the only known method of disrupting the scourges. "Propagation," Zethmar continued. "Your research was closer to a working solution than anything we had developed in 50 years of study. And you want humanity to simply hand over the technology that you forced us to abandon?" Ellen asked. Zethmar's form flickered with what Ellen recognized as desperation. "We would be willing to negotiate terms. The Council understands that the previous restrictions were ... perhaps too severe." Ellen turned back to face the hologram. "The research you're asking about was shut down 6 months ago on direct orders from the Council. The team was disbanded. The equipment was moved to other projects. The data was classified under Earth Federation security protocols. Surely it could be reconstructed," Zethmar pressed. "Perhaps," Ellen agreed. "But that would require significant resources, time, and cooperation from researchers who were quite insulted by the Council's previous attitude toward their work." She paused, letting that sink in. "Dr. Martinez spent 15 years developing the resonance equations. The Council called his work reckless and dangerous. Dr. Kim lost her funding because the Council said her quantum field generators were too advanced for safe operation. These people are not likely to be enthusiastic about helping the same organization that destroyed their careers." Zethmar's crystal body was flashing rapidly now. "What would humanity require to reconsider?" Ellen shook her head. "That's not my decision to make, Minister. I'm just a scientist. You would need to speak with our political leadership about any cooperation agreements." "But the Council voted to prohibit all official diplomatic contact." "With Earth?" Zethmar protested. "Yes," Ellen said calmly. "They did." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Ellen alone with her thoughts. She knew this conversation was just the beginning. The Council was starting to realize how much they needed human expertise. On the other side of the galaxy, similar desperate conversations were happening. The Hegemony Defense Force was discovering that their military capabilities had been severely Weakened by the human withdrawal, General Corthell stood in the command center of the main defense station, studying tactical displays that showed disturbing patterns along the border. Corthell was a Zephyrian military officer who had worked with human strategic advisors for years. His aide, Commander Veltar, approached with a worried expression. "General, we're receiving reports of Ravager scout ships testing our response times along the rim sectors." Corthell's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Ravagers were a nomadic species that attacked isolated systems, stealing resources and enslaving populations. They had been quiet for years, held back by the galaxies. Strong defenses. "What's our current response time to a rim incursion?" Corthell asked. 47 hours from alert to fleet deployment. Veltar replied. Corthell's scales shifted to an angry red color. 47 hours? When the humans were handling tactical coordination, we could respond to any threat in 12 hours. The human strategic analysis systems were integrated into all our defense protocols, Veltar explained. Their computers could calculate optimal fleet positions and coordinate multiple species ships simultaneously. Without them, we're back to the old system of committee decisions and cross-species communication delays. Corthell studied the tactical display more carefully. Red dots showed Ravager ships probing different sections of the border. They were testing defenses systematically, looking for weak points. They know we're vulnerable, he realized. The Ravagers are preparing for a major offensive. Our intelligence suggests they're planning to attack the mining colonies in the Kepler sector, Veltar said. Those worlds have minimal defenses and rich resource deposits. How long to organize a defense fleet for Kepler? Corthell asked. Under the current system? At least 2 weeks to get approval from all the member species and coordinate ship movements. Corthell's anger was growing. 2 weeks? The Ravagers could strip those worlds clean and disappear before we even finish filing the paperwork. He turned away from the tactical display, frustrated by the slow bureaucracy that now governed all military decisions. When humans had been part of the defense network, their rapid decision-making and flexible tactics had kept enemies like the Ravagers from even considering major attacks. Now the galaxy looked weak and divided, exactly the kind of target that aggressive species preferred. Meanwhile, the economic crisis was spreading to even the most stable worlds. On the trade hub of Nexus Prime, merchant guilds were meeting in emergency session to discuss the collapse of several major shipping routes. Guildmaster Threndock paced back and forth in front of a room full of worried alien traders. Threndock was a centaurian whose bark-like skin had turned almost black with stress. "The numbers are undeniable," he announced to the assembled merchants. "Shipping costs have increased by an average of 60% across all routes. Delivery times have doubled. Several dangerous routes have been completely abandoned." A Vrex trader raised one of his tentacles. "My consortium has been offering expanded services to fill the gap left by human withdrawal." "At triple the cost?" Another merchant complained. "Your prices are bankrupting entire colonies." The Vrex trader's skin changed to a smug purple color. "Supply and demand. We are the only ones willing to take the risks that humans once took. Premium service requires premium payment." Threnike continued his pacing. "The problem is deeper then. Just shipping costs. Human traders didn't just move goods between systems. They also served as information brokers, diplomatic messengers, and cultural ambassadors. They connected isolated worlds to the broader galactic community. An Altarian merchant's crystal body pulsed with agreement. Human ships carried more than cargo. They carried news, letters, small luxury items that made life better on frontier worlds. No other species provides those services. Because those services aren't profitable, the Vrex trader pointed out. Humans were losing money on most of their routes. They made up for it with volume and government subsidies. Threnike stopped pacing and faced the group. "That's exactly the point. Humans treated interstellar trade as a public service, not just a business. They kept prices low and services high because they believed galactic civilization was worth supporting." He gestured toward a star map on the wall. "Look what's happening now. Outer colonies are becoming isolated. Communication between systems is breaking down. Some worlds are talking about leaving the galactic community entirely because they can't afford to stay connected. The room fell silent as the merchants considered the implications. The galaxy was not just losing efficient shipping, it was losing the connections that held civilized space together. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The problems that had started as minor inconveniences were now threatening to destroy galactic civilization entirely. The council chamber that had once been filled with confident voices criticizing human independence now buzzed with worry and desperation. Ambassador Kethver stood at his speaking platform, but today he was not attacking humanity. Instead, he was trying to convince his fellow council members to do something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The logistics crisis has reached catastrophic levels, Kethver reported to the emergency session. His mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. Trade routes that humans managed efficiently now require 3 times the resources and twice the time to maintain. The Vrex Consortium is demanding exclusive trading rights to even consider expanding their services. The chamber was quieter than usual. Many seats were empty because several member species had stopped sending representatives to council meetings. They were too busy dealing with their own problems to waste time on galactic politics. The Centaurian delegate, Vorthek, added his concerns in a voice that sounded like wind through dying leaves. Our defensive capabilities have been severely compromised. Human tactical analysis and strategic planning were essential to our border security protocols. The hegemony raiders have already begun testing our response times. A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It belonged to Kextel, a representative from the Outer Rim colonies. His species looked like walking rocks, and they were known for being very practical people. 3 of our mining worlds have already been abandoned, Kextel rumbled. The cost of shipping raw materials to processing centers has become so high that it's not profitable to operate the mines anymore. Our people are moving to systems closer to major trade routes. Kethver's translator device worked overtime as he clicked rapidly. The technological stagnation is equally concerning. Human research partnerships accelerated development across multiple fields. Without their collaboration, our advancement rate has slowed to what it was before we made contact with Earth. The Altarian Prime Minister Nexrin stood up slowly. Her crystal body was dim, lacking the bright glow that usually indicated health and confidence in her species. We forced humanity to choose between conformity and independence, she said in a voice like broken music. They chose independence. Now we must decide whether our pride is worth the continued deterioration of galactic civilization. The Zephyrian Trade Minister Gexther made an angry buzzing sound. Humanity violated established protocols. They expanded too quickly, developed too rapidly, and refused to share their advances through proper channels. And now we see the result of their absence, Nexrin replied firmly. Perhaps the protocols were the problem, not the solution. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had experienced in centuries. For the first time, member species were openly questioning whether the Council's way of doing things was actually working. Vorthek shared intelligence reports about Ravager fleets massing on the border. Kextel presented economic data showing the collapse of interstellar commerce. Representatives from scientific institutions reported that research progress had nearly stopped without human innovation and collaboration, but the most frightening report came from Zethmar, the Altarian science minister. His crystal form was flickering weakly as he delivered news that made the entire chamber fall silent. The quantum plague has consumed 7 star systems, he announced. Our best estimates suggest it will reach the core worlds within 8 months. We have tried to reconstruct the human quantum resonance technology, but our efforts have failed completely. The silence that followed was deafening. The core worlds were the heart of galactic civilization, home to billions of beings and the most important institutions in known space. How long until the plague reaches Nexus Prime? Asked the council speaker, an ancient Altarian whose crystal body had turned almost clear with age. 4 months, Zethmar replied. Maybe less. The chamber erupted in panicked sounds as the reality of the situation hit home. The capital world of the galaxy itself was in danger, and there was nothing the Council could do to stop it. While the Council argued and panicked, life in human space continued to flourish. Commander Jake Patterson stood on the observation deck of the New Armstrong shipyards, watching construction mechs assemble the largest orbital facility humanity had ever built. The shipyard stretched out for kilometers in all directions, with dozens of ships in various stages of construction. Some were cargo vessels designed to serve human colonies. Others were exploration ships meant to find new worlds beyond the edges of known space. A few were warships, just in case the galaxy decided that humanity's peaceful withdrawal wasn't acceptable. How are the new drive systems testing? Patterson asked his chief engineer. Maria Santos smiled with obvious pride. Beyond all expectations, Commander. Without Council restrictions on propulsion efficiency and energy output, we've achieved breakthroughs that would have taken decades under the old system. She pointed to a sleek ship docked near the main construction bay. That's the prototype explorer vessel Independence. It can travel twice as fast as any ship in the galaxy and carry supplies for a 5-year mission. We're planning to send it beyond the outer rim to look for new worlds. Patterson nodded approvingly. Any contact from the Council? Santos laughed. Plenty. Diplomatic requests, trade offers, research partnership proposals. They're all being handled through proper channels. Which channels are those? The same department that handles other unsolicited communications, Santos replied with a grin. The waste disposal unit. Patterson smiled at that, but he also felt a bit sad. Many humans had friends and colleagues among the alien species. They missed the cooperation and cultural exchange that had made galactic civilization interesting, but they didn't miss the bureaucracy, the restrictions, and the constant criticism that had come with Council membership. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Council was facing its darkest hour. Emergency meetings were being held around the clock as member species tried to figure out how to handle the multiple crises threatening their civilization. Chief Administrator Gorthek had not slept in 3 days. His office was filled with data. Displays showing shipping routes going dark, defense positions being abandoned, and research projects being canceled due to lack of resources. His assistant, Ketros, entered the office carrying yet another stack of crisis reports. Sir, we've received formal withdrawal notices from 6 more member species. They're forming independent trade alliances and mutual defense pacts. Gorthek's scales had turned a dull gray color that indicated complete exhaustion. Which species? The Hegemony Mining Consortium, the Spiral Arm Agricultural Alliance, 3 separate military confederations, and the Independent Research Coalition. The galaxy is falling apart, Gorthek muttered. Without humans to hold everything together. Everyone is going their own way. Ketros hesitated before speaking again. Sir, there's something else. We've been monitoring human communications, and they seem to be planning something big. What kind of something? We don't know exactly, but they're building new ships, establishing new colonies, and sending exploration missions beyond the edge of known space. It's like they're preparing to expand into completely uncharted territory. Gorthek turned to look out his window at the busy spaceport below. Ships from dozens of species were coming and going, but there were noticeably fewer than there had been a year ago. They're moving on without us, he realized. While we're fighting to hold our civilization together, humans are building a new one. The truth was becoming undeniable. The Council had assumed that forcing humanity to choose between conformity and isolation would bring them back into line. Instead, humanity had chosen to build something entirely new. Something that didn't need the Council's approval or participation, and as galactic civilization crumbled around them, more and more species were looking toward human space with envy and hope. The Council had wanted to control humanity's growth and innovation. Instead, they had freed humanity to grow and innovate without any restrictions at all. The consequences of that decision were becoming clearer every day. The galaxy needed humanity far more than humanity needed the galaxy, but admitting that truth would require the Council to acknowledge that everything they had believed about governance, progress, and civilization had been wrong for an institution that had ruled the galaxy for 8 centuries. That admission might be the hardest thing of all. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed completely during that time. The old system of central control and slow bureaucracy had collapsed, replaced by smaller groups of species working together in their own ways. President Helen Clark stood before the Earth Federation Assembly in the Great Hall of Geneva. Representatives from every human world sat in the curved rows of seats, waiting to hear her speak about the most important decision their species had faced since leaving the Council. "Fellow humans," Clark began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "For the past 6 months, we have received countless messages from the galaxy asking us to return to galactic civilization." Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives. Everyone knew about the diplomatic requests, trade offers, and desperate pleas that arrived daily from alien worlds. "The Council has offered us unprecedented autonomy," Clark continued. "They promise reduced bureaucratic oversight, recognition of our right to self-determination, and respect for our way of doing things." The murmurs grew louder. Many representatives had been hoping for exactly this kind of offer. They promised trade agreements more favorable than any previously negotiated, research partnerships that acknowledge human technological leadership, military cooperation that respects our strategic independence. Clark paused, letting the attractive offers sink in. Then her voice became more serious. "These offers come from the same council that demanded we slow our development to match their pace. The same council that insisted we share our innovations freely while receiving little in return. The same council that required us to conform to protocols designed for species with fundamentally different capabilities and needs." The assembly fell quiet, understanding the weight of her words. "The question before us today is not whether we can work with the Council," Clark stated firmly. "The question is whether the Council can work with us as equals on our terms with full respect for our sovereignty." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued for accepting the Council's offers and returning to galactic civilization. Others insisted that humanity was better off continuing on its own path. Representative John Miller from the Mars colony spoke for many when he said, "We've proven that we can thrive without the Council's guidance. Why should we give up our independence now?" But Representative Ann Parker from the outer settlements had a different view. "Isolation isn't the answer either. There are good people among the alien species who deserve our help. We shouldn't punish everyone for the Council's mistakes." After much discussion, the Assembly reached a decision that surprised many observers. Humanity would return to galactic affairs, but not as a Council member. Instead, Earth would become something entirely new, an associated independent state. 3 months later, the Terran Accords were signed in a ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy. The agreement was unlike anything in galactic history. Humanity would participate in trade, research, and mutual defense arrangements, but would maintain complete sovereignty over its own affairs, Ambassador Daniel Carter, who had walked out of the Council chamber 2 years earlier, now found himself in a very different position. He sat in his new office on Luna Station, which served as Earth's diplomatic headquarters for galactic affairs. The roles had completely reversed from that day in the Council chamber. Now alien diplomats came to him, seeking cooperation and assistance. Kethfer, the Zephyrian who had once criticized human expansion, now sat across from Carter's desk with a very different attitude. His mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. "Ambassador Carter, the improvements in trade efficiency have been remarkable. Human logistics management has reduced shipping costs by 30% across all participating routes." Carter nodded diplomatically. "Cooperation works better when it's voluntary and mutually beneficial. The crystal form of Nexrin, the Altarian?" Prime Minister pulsed with satisfaction as she added, "The quantum resonance project has been completely successful. The scourge threat has been eliminated entirely. It's something the Council couldn't achieve in 50 years of committee meetings and bureaucratic delays." Carter smiled slightly. When scientists are free to focus on solving problems instead of filling out forms, amazing things can happen. Vorthak, the Centaurian delegate, spoke in his wind-through-leaves voice. The new defense coordination protocols have reduced our response time to border threats by 70%. The Ravagers have given up their plans for major offensives. Flexible tactics work better than rigid procedures. Carter agreed. As the meeting continued, Carter reflected on how much had changed. The alien representatives who had once demanded that humanity conform to their standards were now asking to learn from human methods, but the changes went far beyond improved efficiency. The example of humanity's successful independence had inspired other species to reconsider their relationship with the Council. Within 6 months of the Terran Accords, 8 other species had withdrawn from the Council to negotiate their own independent status. The Hegemony Mining Consortium formed a direct partnership with human colonies. The Spiral Arm Agricultural Alliance began using human shipping methods. Several military confederations adopted human tactical doctrines. The rigid hierarchy that had defined galactic civilization for 8 centuries was crumbling, replaced by a more flexible network of sovereign states working together by choice rather than obligation. On the former council world of Nexus Prime, the changes were dramatic. The massive government complexes that had once housed thousands of bureaucrats now stood half-empty. Many alien species had moved their operations to more efficient locations. Chief Administrator Gorthak, who had once worried about trade statistics and shipping routes, now managed a much smaller operation. His office overlooked a spaceport that was busier than ever, but the traffic was very different. Instead of ships waiting for permits and approvals, cargo vessels moved quickly between loading bays. Instead of diplomatic meetings that lasted for days, business was conducted efficiently and agreements were reached in hours. His assistant, Ketros, entered with the monthly reports, but his attitude was much more positive than it had been during the crisis months. "Sir, the efficiency improvements continue to exceed projections," Ketros reported. "Voluntary cooperation agreements are handling more trade volume than the old mandatory council system ever did." Gorthak's scales had returned to their healthy green color. "Any problems with the new arrangements?" "Minor disputes here and there, but they're being resolved quickly through direct negotiation instead of lengthy council hearings. Most species prefer the new system." Gorthak nodded. The galaxy was learning that cooperation worked better when it was based on mutual benefit rather than imposed authority. Meanwhile, in human space, the expansion continued at an unprecedented pace. Commander Jake Patterson now oversaw a network of shipyards and research stations that stretched across dozens of star systems. The prototype Explorer vessel Independence had successfully completed its mission beyond the outer rim, discovering 3 new star systems suitable for colonization. More exploration missions were being planned to push even further into uncharted space. "How are the new colonies developing?" Patterson asked Maria Santos during their weekly review meeting. "Better than projected," Santos replied enthusiastically. "The freedom to experiment with new technologies and social structures is producing remarkable results. We're seeing innovations in everything from agricultural techniques to energy production." Patterson looked at the star charts showing humanity's expanding sphere of influence. "Any interest from alien species in joining the colonial projects?" "Quite a bit, actually. Several species have requested permission to establish settlements in human space. They're attracted by our less restrictive approach to development and innovation," Patterson smiled. "As long as they understand that they'll be living under human-style freedom and responsibility rather than council-style regulation and dependence." The transformation was complete. Humanity had not fought a war or delivered ultimatums. They had simply walked away from a system that didn't value their contributions. The result was better than anyone had imagined. The galaxy had learned to appreciate what it had lost, and in doing so, had discovered a better way forward. The stars belonged to all species, but no single authority could claim dominion over them. Humanity's withdrawal had taught the galaxy that true strength came not from control, but from the freedom to choose cooperation over coercion. The Council had suffered, But the galaxy had benefited. Sometimes the greatest victory came from simply walking away and building something better. No fight had been necessary, no harsh words had been spoken. The simple act of withdrawal had accomplished what force and argument never could have achieved. Humanity had shown the galaxy a new way to live among the stars based on mutual respect rather than imposed authority. And the universe was a better place because of it.